Hello and welcome to Console Shock, retro and non-gaming chat with me, Trev, and as always, Stu. How's it going, Stu?
Yeah, it's going really well, Trev. Going awesome. Pucker.
Haven't been playing a lot of games, though. You told me just
well,
we
no.
jumped on.
Yeah. God, been away for the weekend, so there was no gaming involved there. And then also we had last week my niece over from Canada, so she was staying in sort of not the gaming room, but the office where my gaming computer is. So it was just lots of sort of activities and sort of doing things and taking her places and stuff like that. So
nice.
I managed to do a little bit more of Diablo 4, but really enjoying that game. Absolutely smashing it. And
Nice one.
yeah. But so not. What about yourself? Have you done much gaming?
Yeah. I was away a little bit. Myself, actually, I went to Manchester, but I didn't really do a huge amount of gaming. I did take my Steam Deck with me, but obviously we were out for a lot of that, so I didn't really do much on that. The last couple of weeks, I have been. I finally got the ASUS ROG or ROG, or as Richard Lee better says, ROG.
It's
ASUS
Republic
ROG.
of Gaming. It's Republic of Gaming.
That really cheesy, bravado, macho PC gaming nonsense that a lot of these companies use. It's up there with like the RGB lighting.
Elaborate on that.
Yeah.
I'm getting really pissed off with every computer now has all this RGB lighting and stuff like that, and I think it looks amazingly naff. And can't you just have a computer that goes, actually, it looks quite discreet, it sits in the corner of your office, it sits in the corner of your room, and it doesn't have great big fans on. I need the fans, obviously, to keep the computer cool, but I don't want flashing lights on it, I don't want this, I don't want that. I want it just to look like what they call it, a stealth computer.
Yeah.
But every and you know, I've got a new gaming computer about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and it's built really well. It's absolutely smashing. Really like it, but I just don't want. I just don't want flashing lights all over it. And if I could go back and I don't know, maybe pay to not have that.
I'm not sure you can. I don't think you can get a gaming computer without all that in it. To be honest,
I know, and it's like I'm looking at it now, and you know, it's just like the lights are just pulsating, and it's like, oh, okay, you know, the lights are on in this room I'm in. It's under the desk. I'm not getting any enjoyment from the lights pulsating. So, is the Republic of Gaming Ally from ASUS? Does that have all these lights and aggressive things on it?
Yeah, as in ASUS. Yeah, it's not from a Spanish person called Jesus. It's from ASUS. They hate us because they ASUS.
Jesus.
It sounds like you're saying Jesus. Hey, Jesus. There's this guy called Jesus, and he bought.
How is it pronounced? How is it pronounced? ASUS.
How is it pronounced? Jesus is the question, I think. There,
ASUS.
mate. But anyway.
ASUS.
Yeah, ASUS. They hate us because they ASUS. ASUS Combat. So, yes, I have it now. It does have some of that RGB nonsense around the joysticks, but you don't really notice. Like you're kind of alluding to, when you're playing a game, you're looking at the screen. You're not looking at the flashy lights. I mean, I can see where it's useful on a keyboard. Not necessarily it being all funky colours and everything, but if you're in a dark room and you're using a keyboard... I find that mostly useful when, you know, I don't know if you do this, but sometimes if you're in bed and you're on the internet and, you know, your missus is asleep next to you, you kind of want to, you're still up just browsing the internet to sort of, you know, until you fall asleep. Backlighting is really great. Doing things like that. People are like, why the hell are you saying that? Yeah, so you can see the keyboard. You know, you can turn the lights off in the bedroom. You're not stopping anybody else from sleeping. But
Trev, with that sounds great. You know, a nice white light that just subtly glows, and then so you can see the letters. That's really what I'm
that's
looking
all you need.
for. And I'm a 42-year-old guy. I don't want a great big like flashing toy with great big fans on and things like that. And as I said, it's hidden under the desk. No one sees it, but it does look like a great big flashing toy.
It's
I've got.
I don't get it. I mean, it's kind of, it probably comes from, you know, people that like mod cars and stuff, and they put fun, fancy lights underneath them and around them, and neon chrome coloured stuff. And
but I do like on Reddit. This is amazing, and we will talk about the ROG Ally in a sec. But there's this amazing group called, it's not Workspace, it's gaming setups, or you know, gaming thrones, or something like that. And you look on there, and then people have got like, you know, 4 monitors with all purple lights behind it, and you know, a massive, great big keyboard that, you know, flashes every different color. And you look at those and you think, oh God, that'd be a really cool setup. Look how powerful that computer looks. And then all, you know, it's got a great big curved monitor and another curved monitor over here and that over there, and he's got flashing lights. And then he's got a logo of his favorite computer brand on the wall. And then he's got, you know, lights over there, and, you know, some sort of microphone so he can do streaming. And you look at that and I think, okay, that sort of looks cool, I suppose. But then I just think, imagine if, you know, someone came round who wasn't into gaming and saw this, and then like, oh bloody hell, what's he up to? What goes on in here?
It looks obnoxious, I think.
Actually, that is like garish, obnoxious.
Yes.
And here it's like, but then on the other hand, you get the Workspace sort of computer setups, and they're like, you know, cases, and they're in the like really nice cases with like, you know, wood effect on there, and they've got keyboards, and they've got a nice plant next to them. They've got 2 really good speakers next to them, and maybe a second monitor, and they're all linked up to an iMac, and you think, oh brilliant, oh that looks a great setup. You know, and that's more what I'm going for, rather than the you know, the flashing purple lights behind my screen with a button. You know, if I'm in a different mood, I can turn that to, you know, garish pink, and if I'm feeling angry, I might turn it to blue. And then if I'm pressing something else, it'll all go mad, and I'll have a epileptic fit.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't appeal to me having something that looks like a Christmas tree or a fun fair. You know, I find it quite childish, actually. I mean, we're probably massively offending people that might be listening.
Yeah,
this is like,
if you're offended, put a comment. Tell us you're offended.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we dare you. We dare you.
We dare you. Go and write something. Go and write something really nasty about us. I dare you.
Probably a dangerous thing to say, you know, on the internet, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
People come over to people's houses and sometimes kill them if they don't agree with something they said on the internet. So
I don't really think we're being that you know, I don't know.
You never know. You never know in the world of the internet.
Yeah.
There was a guy, you know, you just watch some of Review Tech USA's like, news story videos where he's just like, you know, kid killed mum because she told him to stop playing Call of Duty. You know, so yeah, stranger things have happened. But I don't.
About that quantum TV guy.
Oh dear God, yeah,
God. Another quantum TV video, and he uses a picture of quantum TV, which is not actually him.
Yes,
just a random guy with his shirt off.
It is incredible how like that guy's life is completely unraveled because he said he didn't like Elden Ring. Essentially,
I know it's. You know, we sometimes we have opinions on here, and you know, we listen to other people's opinions and we debate them, and they're not really super serious opinions. And
no, we're not like
things like that.
They're not hills that we're happy that we're trying to die on or anything. They're just
exactly. I think if we had a Discord with 1,000 people in, and they didn't agree with my opinion on flashy computers with lots of lights on, we're not going to ban everyone in the Discord. We haven't got a Discord, by the way, but it's the I don't know, things like that.
Yeah. It's just the guy I think was a bit of a weirdo as well. So it kind of just the chickens sort of came home to roost. I think with that guy. But yeah. Anyway, after that,
the ROG Ally. That's what I want to know about.
The ROG Ally, the ASUS ROG Ally.
ASUS ROG Ally.
It sounds like a name almost, doesn't it? ASUS ROG Ally, some kind of politician or something. Yeah, it's great. It's basically like I think you sort of said like question before, like what would be the benefit of having that if you've already got a Steam Deck? Well, for me, it's a case of having sort of that's kind of now my sort of dedicated Game Pass machine, really, even more so than like my Xbox, which is basically I didn't buy the new Xbox. I still have an Xbox One X. I haven't turned that on for weeks. I just basically I mean, I wasn't expecting it to really, but the Steam Deck kind of became my go-to system, really. And now with the Ally, that's basically completed the sort of the needs that I have. And doing a comparison between them, probably the obvious thing that's a disadvantage with the Ally is probably, and well, it's an advantage, but it's also a disadvantage is Windows. Because it is clunky to navigate. It's not controlling the mouse itself isn't as bad as I thought it would be with the joysticks. They've managed to sort of get the acceleration and stuff like fairly decent. It would be a bit better with a trackpad, though. I do miss not having a trackpad, but it's not a deal breaker or anything that you can't get get better at. And to be fair, with the Windows that they put on there, it doesn't have really that much bloatware at all. I'm not really getting nagged to, get this antivirus and subscribe to this Office suite and everything. I had to sort of turn off a few things that would boot up that weren't necessary. But it wasn't a huge, it wasn't anything that really needed me to go and get PC decrapifier or something to get rid of all the nonsense that sometimes you get with gaming machines, PCs. And setting up was fairly easy for me. I mean, I'm in a couple of groups on Facebook, and some people have been talking about. I mean, obviously, more people are going to talk about things when they have a bad experience versus people that just have a good experience and manage to get on with it and don't have any issues. But the amount of posts on there that are like, "Oh, I got it out of the box and it wouldn't fully boot properly, or I couldn't get it to. I couldn't put all my details in right to get Windows to work, or it wouldn't do this, it wouldn't do that." And I'm selling it now. I'm selling it. It's crap, So there's like lots of melodramatic. I think probably a lot of it user error related stuff. I think the trouble is these sort of, and there were similar things happen with the Steam Deck with the groups that I'm in that are on Facebook that are Steam Deck related. A lot of people who haven't had any interest in PC gaming at all have picked up these handheld gaming PCs, thinking that. I mean, I guess to you that kind of was how it kind of affected you a little bit. Wasn't it? Thinking it is kind of just a complete plug and play thing.
Yeah,
it isn't really at all.
That was the thing I found sort of annoying about it was the setting up of games, the trying to work out the controllers, and I didn't have a massive Steam catalog. Admittedly, the Steam sale's on at the moment, so I am picking up a few more games.
Yeah.
So I think you went on there and you logged on and go, oh, God, I've got 200 games. 100 of them work perfectly. Brilliant. I love this machine.
Yeah.
And then I was in there. I was in there, and it was more the opposite. It was more like, oh, I've got 17 games, and 2 of them work on it, but one of them's the controls are a little bit off, and so, and I think I got a little bit sort of perplexed by the whole operating system, and I didn't think it was the most intuitive, but then it was, and then you got into the games and
do you miss it? Do you regret it at all at any point selling it?
I think I do to a certain extent. I think if I persevered with it, I think it would have been a good sort of buy. But then I look at it now and I see on Steam, oh, actually it's on. It's there's 20% off the actual Steam Deck. I think, oh, maybe I should.
Yeah, they do put them in the sale, which is quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I should sort of get one. And the thing is, now I'm getting sort of more into sort of gaming on my PC. But the whole thing is that what I'm finding is I'm playing games on Game Pass. I'm playing games on Battle.net. I go on to the Epic Game Store and get the free game every week. just for the sake of
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
it, but not actually installing it. And maybe one day I'll go back to that. And then again with GOG, I'm having a lot of sort of fun with GOG. Sort of, they had a good sale on, and they've had some really good deals recently. And then again with Steam. So actually, it's like a lot of the games I'm getting are out of the Steam ecosystem. So actually, the ROG Ally would probably be that's the route I think I would want to go,
Yeah.
rather than the Steam Deck, because you're absolutely right. You can go, all right, brilliant. I can download all my Game Pass games, and I've got Game Pass Ultimate, and then I can put on. I've got a few games on Steam. I've got games on GOG, and it's instantly it's going to be a really sort of good system to have.
Yes, exactly. So so that's literally kind of my approach with the ASUS is that'll be my kind of everything that kind of isn't great on the Steam Deck. So yeah, Game Pass obviously is the main thing really, because the amount of games obviously you have access to on the PC through that, and the other launchers like you're saying. I mean, there are ways around to get those other launchers to work on the Steam Deck, and I did explore that a little bit, but I found it very clunky. And to the point where I kind of gave up, really. And incidentally, a lot of those games that are on that I perhaps had on, because I do have games on other launchers like yourself. It got to the point where I was like, you know what? I think if they're cheap, I'll just pick up a Steam version. And that's basically what I did. And there are instances even on the Steam Deck where it's the Steam version of a game, but it might need to still log you in to a launcher, like FIFA 22 or something. It still needs Origin, or it needs you to go through the EA Play app, but it's still a better experience than if you try and do it just through the EA Play app. If you have it on, because Steam will kind of bundle in all the installation of that app and the login. It will kind of make that a bit easier if you just have it in your Steam library. So yeah, that's really just the Steam Deck at this point now is obviously, pretty much just for my Steam library and the games that run well in that, and also mainly emulation. Really, I'm the Ally. The only real emulation I've been doing on that is actually PS3.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, the performance is a lot better because I do have some PS3 games using the PS3 emulator, RPCS3. It does work on the Steam Deck, but it's not a native Linux version of RPCS3. It's like you have to sort of run the Windows version. So it doesn't run, the performance isn't quite as good. Actually, no, I'm getting that wrong. It's the Wii U that has that doesn't have a native version. But anyway, like there is a Linux version of the PS3 emulator, but it just doesn't run as well. The Linux port might not be as good as the Windows one, as which can be a factor. And also the Steam Deck isn't as powerful as an Ally. So like a game like I'll be trying to play the 2014 World Cup game, FIFA World Cup game on the Steam Deck, the PS3 version. And you can get it'll run like 30 frames a second to 40 frames a second. So basically slow motion. You can't really play it at all. Whereas Ridge Racer 7 runs perfectly on the Steam Deck. But on the Ally, that FIFA World Cup game runs perfectly on the.
It's just got more power, isn't it? More power to throw at it.
More power to throw at it, and the Windows version of RPCS3 is better than the Linux version. So better optimized.
Obviously, what I like about it is, it goes into the Windows environment. Now, when you're using the that tiny little that tiny little screen, but what was it? 6-inch screen or 7-inch screen? What
7, I think.
Yeah, 7. What are you able to sort of navigate it well? I can appreciate that. You might be able to. Put your fat fingers on there and get into what's it called, the Xbox sort of area, Game Pass area, to launch the Game Pass games. But what about sort of playing around with settings or maybe browsing the internet? Is that doable?
Yeah, I mean, with it just sort of in your hands, I don't browse the internet on it or do anything other than really play a game. So I only ever sort of dive into the launchers. That's the only real kind of stuff in terms of navigating Windows that I really do. And yeah, obviously I do go into the settings to maybe, check the latest Windows updates and make sure everything's up to date. You've got things like, you've got Armory Crate, which is like an overlay. That you kind of land on when you turn it on after you log into Windows, which is pretty easy as well because it can just do your fingerprint for that. So you haven't got to bring up a keyboard and tap away on the screen to log in or anything. You just log you straight in with that, which is great. But yes, I don't actually use that Armory Crate launcher because it tries to sort of pick up the games you've installed, and you can then you can use the D-pad and the action buttons to sort of choose things and navigate around. But it kind of breaks fairly easily because you'll pick a game, and then maybe that game is actually a game that runs through the Xbox app, the Game Pass app. So you kind of get dumped out of Armory Crate, and you're just back at the desktop to go through the rest of the process of making that game start. So I don't really use that Armory Crate. I use it mainly to check for the updates for the device itself and things like that. Is really all that's good for.
So what about? I've had. One of my experiences with getting a PC, which is obviously different from the Xbox, which was previously my primary sort of gaming device, was actually I put on FIFA 23, I installed that, and then it just came up with an error. And I was like, okay, right, Googling this error. Oh, here's a video. Here's a guide of what to do, and it's frustrating because I've got Game Pass installed, I've got everything's done right, and I'm installing the latest FIFA game, and then so I had to get into the BIOS, I had to change a setting in the BIOS to, I can't even remember what it was now, and then come out of that
because of the anti-cheat thing.
It's
really
something to do with that. It's something to do with that. And then I got back into it, and then it worked. So it was all these steps to do, and it's like part of me sort of thinks, well, what if I was, someone had bought me that game, and maybe I was 14 years old, and I was on my first sort of gaming computer. What do you mean get into the BIOS? How do you do that? How do you do
just to run a game?
And then so that sort of goes back to actually, let's say you got the ROG Ally and you want to play FIFA, or you want to play X or Y game, whatever you want to play, and then hold on, I've got to let's read the FAQ. I'm reading that on my phone. I've got to do this. I've got to play. How easy is it to get into these settings and then change, stuff in the BIOS, or, change some obscure setting so the game would work? Is that even doable?
I haven't really had to dive into any of that stuff. I mean, there is obviously, you can get into the BIOS. From what I can tell from videos of people that were reviewing the Ally and talking about doing things in the BIOS, that you can navigate with like the D-pad and like the buttons. They've actually kind of made a BIOS interface that is optimized for the Ally, which is good. So I haven't had to do that. I mean, I downloaded FIFA 23 from Game Pass and onto the Ally, and I got it working, and it worked actually straight away. The only issue with it is the frame rate in the cutscenes is terrible. It literally looks like a slideshow. But I was worried, was it just me? Have I got to tweak something or do something? But everybody that I've seen that have done the same thing have said it just doesn't.
But the gameplay's fine though.
The gameplay's fine. You can play that runs over 60 frames a second, even at 1080p. So which is fine. The cutscenes you're seeing, you celebrate a goal or whatever. They can be as bad as you like, as long as the game is actually running. But it's not as good as, FIFA 22 on the Steam Deck ran perfect. Everything ran really well, but that was based on the PS4 version of that game, whereas FIFA 23 is the first PC version that's based on the PS5 sort of version of the game. So obviously the requirements took quite a big leap between 22 and 23, and I don't think they really well optimized it for PC. I mean, there's the nonsense that you've talked about with the anti-cheat. I'm hoping they'll do a better job of that with the next or EA Sports FC as it'll be now. Hopefully they'll do a better job with that. Maybe like making the cutscenes a bit run more smoothly as well for people that are on lower spec hardware, because that's kind of a game that people run on cheap, shitty laptops, and like Call of Duty and like, Fortnite and stuff. It's in that sort of group of games that are typically bought by kids to play on their dad's laptop or something.
Yeah, they've got like performance modes, haven't they? That's what they call them. So they're kind of like, the settings are sort of dialed in to be perfect to run 60 frames a second. Not a potato, but
something not too far from that.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're the games that sort of sell in such a big volume. They need to they can't just be catered to someone that has in 4080 GTX, insane graphics cards with ray tracing. Then they need to be able to sort of run on a lot of different hardware. So, in terms of like tweaking things, I haven't had too much. I mean, I think probably what has helped me is using the desktop mode on Steam Deck on the handheld has probably trained me up a little bit on that, because I've done way more tinkering on that than I've had to do with the Ally, because really there was a lot of games that I was trying to get that needed tweaking to get things to work. Emulators, putting the ROMs in particular directories and copying files across and things like that. There's a lot more fiddly kind of, ideally you'd be at a keyboard and mouse doing it, but I actually just couldn't be asked to plug it into anything. I would just do it with the joysticks and the trackpad and the on-screen keyboard, and I got pretty decent at it.
I think that's what I was going to ask next. So have you needed to sort of plug in a wireless keyboard, and a wireless mouse?
Yeah. Not really. Not really. I mean, I think the first game that I actually tried playing was Super Lucky's Tale, and obviously that's just a game that just works straight up with the controller. The games that I play are controller games. So aside from just navigating Windows to open the launcher and then clicking on the tile of the game, that's really as far as it's gone. I mean, if you only ever use Steam on your ASUS, you could have a really good experience, actually, because you can have Steam Big Picture Mode, which basically is very much like the Steam Deck in SteamOS. You can have Windows boot directly into that, and then you can just use your controller to navigate your game library and hit the A button to launch a game like you do on a Steam Deck. You can actually add other games from other launchers through that as well, but it does break a little at that point because you might get thrown out of the big picture mode to the launcher. That probably has its own thing that you need to do, and then you might have to drop back down to a keyboard and mouse sort of interface to do that. But I've probably got a high tolerance of navigating. I've had to do some little things like I say, getting like emulation going. That's kind of a thing that needs you just to scrabble around in Windows. But even then, I've been pretty decent just using the joystick and the buttons just to navigate around. It doesn't feel brilliant at all. It is clunky, but it's not so bad that it puts me off. It's functional is probably the best way to put it. But I've probably got a higher tolerance for that stuff than a lot of people.
I think I think that's the issue, and from looking at the reviews of the Steam Deck from where it was when it came out, probably a year ago or 9-10 months ago, even longer than that maybe. That's the software on that's improved measurably.
Oh yes,
I would say, and I'm sort of looking on what's it called on Steam for going through the sales, and loads of games have the icon for it's on Windows, and then it's got a little Steam logo, and that I would assume means it's on the Steam Deck.
Yes,
it'll work on that as well, and probably a good 40% of the games work on that. So
I would probably say more like 60 or 70%, maybe even higher than that. 40 are just if it's got the little green tick saying this is Steam Deck verified, that just means it runs perfectly on the Steam Deck. I play loads of games that are just playable. Some of them are absolutely perfect, but they're still classed as playable. Like something like I've been playing games like 2008 Dead Space and Warhammer Space Marine. and they're just some of those are just like they work, but they're not verified by Steam. But I've not had a problem. Maybe there's the odd time you have to bring up a keyboard to type in a name of a save file or something.
Yeah.
And that's really where I guess it kind of breaks the immersion a little bit. So we can't really say it's verified. But
Trev, the big question on everyone's lips: are you going to sell your Steam Deck?
No, definitely not. I mean, like I said, it's kind of become my exclusive emulator machine. As well as, but actually just a few days ago, I started playing Resident Evil 2 Remake on the Steam Deck, and it runs great. I mean, it probably would run a shade better on my ASUS, but I kind of see them as two separate hard drives now. I've kind of got the 512 gig on the ASUS, and obviously, certain things that kind of really run on that, like Game Pass stuff. And then I've got the stuff that I've got the a terabyte on my Steam Deck with the SD card, and I want to get an SD card for my ASUS as well. So I kind of see them as two separate hard drives, and I just put whatever I feel like on it on each one. At the moment, I find using my Steam library on my Steam Deck's a bit better. I'm sure that if there's a game that I really want to play that just won't run on the Steam Deck, even if it's in Steam, there's a racing game called Assetto Corsa.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't work at all on the Steam Deck. I've got it in my Steam library. I've had it in there for years, but that'll work on the ASUS. So I mean, I've got Steam and Epic Game Launcher and EA Play and GOG. They all work on my ASUS, so they're games that I'll dive into that. PS3 emulation obviously is kind of a lot better on the ASUS, so that'll always be used for that. I even started playing Gears of War 2 on xCloud. You can kind of get xCloud working on the Steam Deck, but there's quite a few hoops you have to jump through.
Yeah, I don't like hoops.
Yeah, so basically it's just, it just works through the Game Pass app on the ASUS. So again, and it actually ran fairly well. But the only game I really had trouble with was Forza 7. That would crash constantly on my ASUS. And I did look up to see if there was an issue there, and people were saying, it's because it doesn't like ASUS graphics cards, and a lot of people have the same issue. So I'm a bit bummed out about that. I do, but
what about Forza Horizon 5?
I haven't tried any of them, but from what I've seen, those run great. So I could just download that. Really, couldn't I? And be done.
Yeah,
with it.
that's. I mean, it's probably a bit more exciting game, a bit more arcadey.
Probably
down your street, but.
Yeah, I would say you're probably right on that.
I think my next question for you, Trev, is: have you turned it up to super hyper gaming turbo mode?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I was going to get to sort of something that I've really got better at as well with the Steam Deck, and obviously now with the ASUS, is kind of managing your power draw. Because really, for the longest time since I got the Steam Deck, I just didn't really bother with any of that. I just kept it at the maximum TDP, 15 watts. So the battery would always run out in about, hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes. But now I've started to sort of get better at, fine tuning. And you have to do a big effort to do this. Like Resident Evil 2 that I'm playing now. I've worked out that you can have, like, I can cap the screen refresh to 40 frames a second, or 40 hertz. Cap the game frame rate to 40. 40 feels really good, especially in a game like Resident Evil, which is not super twitchy. It's fairly slow paced. And I can drop the TDP down to 6 watts. So nearly a third of what it normally would be drawing for the graphics power there. I can get about 3 hours of battery.
That's what I was going to ask. That's doubled how long it would last for.
Yeah.
And
that's a pretty good, it's like a Nintendo Switch. And that's a PS4 game, really. A very late era PS4 game, Resident Evil Remake, and it plays brilliant. And I can play that for 3 hours.
But could you, let's say you go on a long flight somewhere and you haven't got access to power, and you think, well, actually, on this long flight, I want to play solitaire or something, which is obviously not going to. I'm trying to think of a game that's not going to use. Maybe you're playing something like Civilization 3.
Well, I've got a good example, on like the Steam Deck. There's like there's a Sensible World of Soccer 2020, which is a fan-made update to Sensible World of Soccer, which runs in Windows, like natively. You haven't got to like download an Amiga emulator or anything. It just works like a normal Windows game. It's great. If anybody's into Sensible World of Soccer and they want to play like an updated version, it's the same game engine. They haven't changed the graphics or the gameplay, but all the teams have been updated, and they've also got it working easily in Windows. So that I got on my Steam Deck, and it runs fine. That I can dial all the TDP all the way down to 3 watts, and it runs perfectly. I'll probably get about 4 or 5 hours playing that game quite easily. And there's probably other games like 2D dungeon crawlers and like Vampire Survivors. You could probably drop the TDP down. So yeah, I've gotten better, and you can save a profile for each game. So when I fire up Resident Evil 2, I can just flip a switch and it jumps to that profile where I've dialed down the refresh rate of the screen, dialed down the TDP of the graphics card, and I'll just better get that 3 hours that I've been getting without having to go back into menus and fiddle with anything.
On the opposite side of things, if you're sitting on the sofa and you go, "Oh, this is the latest game, I really want to, play it, get the most out of it," I imagine you can plug it in and then play it at, I don't know, 50, top max mode. And this is the same for the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally. You can pay, you can turn this up and actually play it. Try and get the most out of it as you possibly can. Yeah.
So I mean, if I'm at home and again, the Resident Evil again, this game I've been playing lately, that's why I keep referring back to it. But when the battery does die, I can just pop the power back into it to the wall, turn off the game profile, and everything will just jack back up again to 60 frames. It runs at 60 frames a second really well. With maximum wattage on the graphics card, and it will just run flawlessly because I've got no issue with the battery running out. So yeah, it's a really good thing to get a handle on, is just dialing down your and the ASUS does have a similar system. You've got like a menu you can kind of call up with a button that's just underneath the like the menu button. Or the select button, whatever they call it these days, is a dedicated button for it. And it brings up a little overlay, much like the Steam Deck has these overlays that you bring up with the buttons, the Steam button and like the options button. And there's some performance profiles. You can tweak them yourself. I haven't really done that, but there's ones that are already set up by ASUS as like a silent one, like a medium one, and a performance one. To be honest, most of the time I've been using the medium one. Like Super Lucky's Tale, a very sort of straightforward kind of old school Nintendo-like 3D platformer that ran at 1080p 60 frames a second on just the 15 watt mode. So I get about 2 hours of battery. But playing FIFA 23, that needed a bit more juice. So I haven't really tried that out in 15 watts. I think it might struggle a bit. Because like I said, I think it's quite badly optimized for PC. But that you need to sort of boost that up to sort of 25, 30 watt mode, which is the battery destroying. You'll get about an hour of gameplay, and
I mean, does it get hot to touch, or
it does? It just certainly does feel warm. Just underneath the left trigger, you can actually feel there's a little area there where you're near a heat area. It doesn't feel uncomfortable, like, oh my god, I'm burning. You don't get nothing like that, but you can feel it's warm around that area. And if you put your hand right on that spot, which is not where you would naturally put your hand, you can feel how warm it gets. But the fans are a lot quieter in the ASUS. So I don't think the fans are obnoxiously loud on the Steam Deck, but you can certainly hear them. But they're not as bad on they're quieter on the ASUS. And there's obviously the screen is 1080p as well. I mean, I started playing Doom Eternal on the ASUS. And that runs at like 1080p, and playing a game at 1080p on a small screen, obviously it looks super crisp, and like the pixel density is so high, it looks great, like a sort of what they call it with Apple, like a Retina display type thing. And that runs, I can run that under 15 watts, and it will do 60 frames a second, sort of medium graphics quality with the odd little drop down of 2 or 3 frames every now and then. So that's pretty good. You'll get a couple of hours out of that. And with maybe PS3 light emulation, that 15 watts, that runs pretty well. If there's a game that struggles a little bit, like I think people always struggle with like God of War 3 and things like that, you might have to bump it up to the 25 watt performance mode to get the So the power, the graphics card can suck more power.
How's it to? Probably, I guess my sort of final question, really. I mean, I think you're sold on it. You're giving those sort of vibes that you're really enjoying it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, is it comfortable to use for a long period of time? Is it just like holding a Switch is very uncomfortable, I think.
I think
But
so. Yeah.
let's say, is it as comfortable as holding an Xbox 360 controller for 2 or 3 hours?
It's very comfortable. It's about as good as you can get with handheld comfortness. It's the Steam Deck. It's a bit smaller and thinner than the Steam Deck, so it's slightly more comfortable. Though I don't really have any problem with the Steam Deck, but some people say it is a bit chunky. And like you say, the Switch is almost the opposite because it's like you're holding a very thin tablet in your hand. There's nothing to really rest your palms on or anything.
No,
or sort of the knuckles of your, where your knuckles live, that bit underneath you, above your palm of your hand. There's nowhere for that to sit. So that could be quite uncomfortable. But yeah, it's pretty comfortable. The buttons fall pretty nicely. It's got the offset joysticks, which again, I don't think I'm fine with them being next to each other or offset. I know some people live or die by one or the other, but they're offset for people that like that. The sort of Xbox controller layout. It's pretty comfortable. Some people have had issues with like drift and like dead zones. I haven't really. I don't think I'm super sensitive to that anyway, so I'm probably not the best person to comment. But I haven't noticed any big issue with that. Games I've been playing, like I say, Forza is one, which you really would notice that sort of thing, and it seems okay to me. So yeah, in terms of comfort, yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm struggling with is finding a case for it at the moment. I think I'm just going to get another Steam Deck case because I think they fit it. It's like the Steam Deck's slightly bigger, so I'll just use one of them to fit it in. But because you don't get a case with it like you do with the Steam Deck.
No.
Good. Yeah,
I'm sure there must be people that are like, selling them, and
yeah, it's still early days, really. When you think about it, yeah.
I'm sure we'll get one in easily enough. But
is it something you've been tempted to get yourself, perhaps, if you had a bit of spare
I think. Do you know what? I think if I had the sort of I might do. I might do
because the price. Obviously, it's not super cheap, but it's not like these Iron Neo, grand and a bit sort of jobs.
It's about 700 quid, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I mean, for what you're getting, it seems like a good price. And I've always sort of talked before about how, well, actually, do you want a machine that's okay and it's £500, or do you want a machine that's really good and it's £700? And it seems like things have sometimes. You wish they cost a little bit more and they could have get a bit more in there, rather than just some sort of, something that's, made for a price. But I think £700, from what you're getting from it and the experience is really good.
I think we speculated it was probably going to end up being like £1,000 or something when we first heard about this thing.
I think so. So I think £700 is, and I think I'll say one more question on it. Really, have you plugged it into a monitor or your TV yet? And
that's actually a good point. That's a very good point. So the experience with that on the Steam Deck is now pretty good. It's actually nearly flawless. I think we said, I was in a few podcasts ago, but I think I mentioned when I, not long after I got the Steam Deck, it was very, very poor, the plugging it into a dock to get it on your telly situation. It didn't really work very well. It was the resolutions would screw up and it couldn't tell if it was plugged into the TV or not, and it just wasn't working well. But a couple of months after that, I think they released an update and it became flawless. Basically, I've got a generic, it's not a cheap one, it's sort of a £60 sort of dock that I use mainly for laptops, but it obviously works USB-C. It works with the Steam Deck as well. And if I want to plug it into the big TV in our living room, I use that, and it works flawlessly. I plug it into the top. It picks up on the TV. Sort of the Steam Deck screen kind of switches off, and then you can just do it completely on the TV, and everything's scaled up perfectly. It's still not ideal where some games you kind of have to rejig the resolution to take advantage of the extra pixels. So almost a lot of time I don't really bother because it's just too much of a faff. And to be honest, if it runs at like a good frame rate, that's kind of means more to me than the actual pixels that I'm being shown. But yeah, basically, and then you can connect an Xbox controller wirelessly to the Steam Deck really easily, and you're good to go. And there isn't an issue there. It can be a bit clunky when you've got to navigate like there's a launcher or some kind of menu that you have to get through to get to the game, which some games do throw at you. You can, with an Xbox controller, you kind of hold down the Xbox button and then use the right joystick to act as the mouse. So you can get around that stuff without having to, attach a keyboard and a mouse even in that scenario. So you're covered there as well.
Right, okay.
And you could bring up the keyboard with like a quick sort of button combo on the Xbox controller. So you're covered for all that stuff. So yeah, it's really good on the Steam Deck. But with the ASUS, I tried to use that same dock, but it didn't work anywhere near as well. When I tried to plug in like the power adapter through the USB-C pass-through and then plug in the HDMI, it wouldn't do anything. It just wouldn't go on the TV at all. But then I would take out the USB-C power, and then it would come on. And I was able to play. It was on the TV, and I was able to play. I had to sort of use the actual ASUS to get to the game I wanted to play. It was again super lucky still was what I was playing at that point in time. And I was able to get it to load, and I could sit and I paired an Xbox controller, and I was able to play it. It did completely fall down. Well, for one, because I couldn't have the power plugged in, the battery was going to run down at some point within a couple of hours. And two, I didn't have a keyboard.
Could you not power it? Power the console from its power thing, and then plug the HDMI or the USB-C into it. You couldn't plug the.
Well, there's only one USB. There's only one USB.
Oh,
jack.
And that's how you power it.
Yeah, you need to power it. So if you want to, the Steam Deck's the same, but the dongle, the hub that I use, or the dock, whatever you want to call it, that passes through the power through to the Steam Deck, and it's quite happy.
That's what
I
use here. I've got a dock, so when I'm working from home or when Justine's working from home, she'll just plug in that, and then the picture comes up on the two screens, and away you go, and the laptop's charging. And I would have thought on the Asus that would have just happened the same as if you had an Asus, laptop, whatever their brands are called, but it would just work like that. And you can, I don't know if
it just didn't like the dock. I could get another one tomorrow and it'll work flawlessly. But the main, that isn't really the biggest thing. The biggest thing is navigating Windows when you sat away from the Asus. You would need to sort of plug in like, a wireless keyboard and mouse, really, because there isn't a way of mapping. Because obviously, when you've got the Asus in your hands, the joysticks, you control the mouse and you can call up a touchscreen keyboard and stuff. You don't have any of that with just an Xbox controller that you've got paired.
Could you buy one of those? You can get those little keyboards with a little touchpad on there, and could that be sort of Bluetooth into the Asus, so you could have that on your lap to sort of navigate Windows on your big screen, or whatever you want to do. Then load your game, and then if it does say, "Oh, put your name in," you'll pick the controller up and write Trev. And
how do you know my username?
Trev123.
Get docs now by you. That's exactly it. So basically, you should be able to do that. I think where it's annoying, there's no way of mapping how the joystick and the actual unit itself handles, replicating a keyboard and a mouse. And it doesn't try and, you can't map that onto an Xbox controller, whereas the Steam Deck does do that and give you shortcuts and ways of using the Xbox controller when you sat away from the Steam Deck to still be able to put text in and control a mouse cursor if you need to. Yes, so it's not as good. I mean, I'm sure that if I bought the official Asus dock for it, I'm sure I'll be able to power it and have the HDMI and have it work on the TV and get charged together once with the official thing. Of course it will work, but with the third party one I've got, it wasn't having it. So unless
I think sometimes the docks are a little bit. I mean the one that I've got given one from work, and that's kind of the one that we use. And then the problem with that one, it can't power two 1440p screens.
Right.
So we've looked into it, and then we'll have to go and buy another one for that, which is, we might do that eventually. But the whole point is they're not all equal. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, so again, that kind of leans on Windows a bit as of adding a layer of jankiness there that we don't really have with the Steam Deck. So yeah, I mean, there might be an update, and I could plug that same dock in a week, and it'll work in the way I want it to work. But even then, I'll still need to. I mean, I've got a couple of wireless keyboards knocking around. I'll have to sort of plug the USB dongle into the dock of one of those, and to be able to use a keyboard and a mouse, and just to navigate around Windows when I'm away from the Ally. But at the moment, because of the issues, because of that, and the clunkiness of having it plugged into the TV, I've just been using it exclusively as a handheld. Whereas the Steam Deck, if I'm in the mood, I'll plug it into the TV and play it on there. And that's something that I don't really, having tried it with the Ally, it's kind of put me off for the time being. I might end up buying that dock though, which will make it, work better, and a better sort of keyboard. Like you say, one of those all-in-one keyboard mouse things that can just be sat on the sofa. You pick it up, and it will just talk to the ASUS straight away.
You could use it almost like a Switch, couldn't you?
Yes.
You just plug it in. It'll come up on your screen. You'll use the mouse, touchpad on the keyboard. Choose your game. Pick up your controller. Play the game for 2 hours.
Like yeah, it'll mostly be like that. The only issue is you need a keyboard and a mouse plugged in to do anything.
Exactly. So it's not quite as easy as
It's not quite as easy. Whereas a Steam Deck, you can do everything from a controller, even one wirelessly paired. It's got mechanisms that map. Controlling a mouse, manipulating a keyboard. It's got a mechanism to recreate that with a joypad. Whereas the Ally doesn't have that. It might. To be honest, really, when we get to a point of where we need Windows to bring out that gamer edition, that's
my point. And I always say, I've said this before, but what I've said is that you're going to have 3 different types of computers. You're going to have a desktop, for gaming. You can have a laptop, for gaming and doing all other bits and bobs. And then this is going to be the third type of gaming or type of PC setup. And what's the term for it? A handheld?
Handheld gaming PC, like a laptop gaming PC.
Exactly. So it's a handheld gaming PC. So someone's sitting there going, "Oh, what gaming peripheral can I come up with?" What's that keyboard that they used to come out for the what's it called, for the GameCube, which has a keyboard and then controllers, one half of the controller at one end, one half of the other.
But hilarious.
If you to do that, and the keyboard was maybe like the size of an iPhone, and then
to be honest, just the thing you plug into the 360, the little keyboard you plugged into that.
Exactly. So someone's got an idea for a new product that they want to sell loads of. There you go.
To be honest, what you're sort of saying, you need, if ASUS could make like a controller for the Ally for people for when you want to plug it into your TV that has maybe a little touchpad in it and a small keyboard you can pull out or fold out, so you don't have to have a huge janky keyboard sat next to you that you got to pair up every time, and a joypad as well. I think that'd be great.
Exactly, and even because obviously there's some sort of issue with your dock. So potentially, if ASUS came out, this is a dock perfectly designed for the ROG Ally. That'll be great little sort of add-ons to buy, so you can really sort of get the most out of it, because that's what a lot of people, I think, like the idea of. They plug it into their TV, and then, on the way to work, it'll be fully charged. They'll play it on the train. Then when they get the office, they might charge it there or whatever they do. And then I think there's loads of opportunities for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that Steam will release. I mean, they had their original Steam controller, which was pretty. I mean, I thought I never used one. Some people think it's crap. Some people think it's amazing. But basically, that controller is what evolved into the Steam Deck. With the touchpad and everything on the controller. I think it'd be great if Steam made a controller as an accessory for the Steam Deck that was basically the controller that's on the Steam Deck, but just on a controller. With a couple of touch pads, some buttons on the back, because I never had a use for the extra buttons that they put on there until I realized that when I'm playing an emulator, they're really handy to program like a quick save state and a quick load state, or even a rewind button, a dedicated rewind button. So those extra buttons that they put on the back are actually quite handy for those little extra functions that you don't really want to assign to a regular button because you need that just for the functions of the game. So yeah, I think that they should definitely try and make a controller that matches that the layout of the Steam Deck as a something that you could pair up with the Steam Deck or actually I'm sure if they did make it, they'd probably make it so it'd work with anything. Something like that would work great with an Ally as well, especially like with a trackpad, make it easier to navigate Windows with when you plugged into the TV. So and also, to be honest, there's nothing to stop these guys making like a PlayStation TV equivalent, because that was just a Vita without the screen and the controller. Something you could make a Steam Deck in a box.
Yeah, that'd be like a little. Because what was it recently, or this week? There's a little trend for Metal Jesus. He keeps on getting sent these little PCs, and
yes,
and the one he reviewed this week, it was a PC that was $399 and maybe $500, and he kept on going, well, I'm going to play it at 4K. And it's just like game after game was really poor. And he was like, oh, well, you have to turn it down to 1080p. And it's just like, well, obviously you do. You don't leave it. Something that's £400 or £500 isn't going to do, 4K at 60, especially on a PC game where that's not their main aim, what they're designed to do.
Yes, yeah.
And there's more to think about that. It's like, well, actually, what if the ROG Ally came out with ROG Ally Lite or ROG Ally TV, so it didn't have the screen on, didn't have the controllers. It was just a square box. Plug it into the back of your TV, and that was a £400 little mini console.
Yeah,
and then you connected it with a HDMI or a controller over Bluetooth, and then you've got a tiny little console for a fraction of the price. You can even put it onto the back of your TV, screw it onto a Visa mount, or hide it somewhere, or take it on holiday with you.
Yeah, I think you can make it pretty small, like this will apply to both of them really, but taking the Steam Deck as an example, and then taking the screen off and the controller, that would free up a lot of space. You probably wouldn't need to put a super expensive tiny SSD. You could use a more conventional one that you put in a desktop computer.
Exactly, and much better cooling as well.
Much better cooling. It could sit. It'd be a fraction of the size. It'd be like an Apple TV.
Oh, it also wouldn't have the battery in it.
Yeah, you wouldn't have the battery. You haven't got to account for that, and it could probably be about £300. Play all of your Steam library and a lot of other games as well. Use the same SteamOS interface, so you can sit away from it with a controller in your hand. Either an Xbox One will pair with it, or they'll probably bring out their own controller, like we've been saying. And it'd be a great introduction to PC gaming for people that don't want to buy a $2,000 GTX 4080 or RTX 4080 rig, because it also, like I was saying, it runs a lot of games. I've been playing Resident Evil 4. I know that's not a current gen game; it's a last gen game. But there are people playing Last of Us Part 1. That's a current gen exclusive, and that runs on the Steam Deck, not 60 frames a second at 1080p, but upscaled 1080p looks fine, and the Asus is a little bit above that and can hit those slightly higher frame rates. And so, these are great alternatives to a PS5 and an Xbox Series, really. They're not that far behind in terms of what they can do. Price-wise, they're not. Well, the Ally probably, you could say, is a bit of a jump in price, but the Steam Deck, the baseline model, it's cheaper than a PS5, I think, isn't it?
Oh yeah, easily, yeah.
Yeah. But with the advantage of being able to take it around with you, it's almost, in my eyes, there's no contest there. Especially when a lot of the exclusive PlayStation games are coming to PC. We've got like Ratchet and Clank was confirmed recently. Uncharted is already on it. God of War, Spider-Man remastered. So you kind of have got a jack of all trades there that you can take with you. Whether you want to go with a Steam Deck or with an Asus. I think I'm just sort of saying generally why Windows or PC gaming is brilliant, and I think you're probably discovering this now.
I am actually. It's I am enjoying the gaming on PC, and I think what for me it's going to be. I think I'm going for a stage with it at the moment, and it's all I'm discovering loads of new things. But I think it's still going to be. I like having my my Switch. I like having my Xbox. I like having my gaming PC, and basically.
Yeah, well, you've got everything there. I think it's always good to give yourself a variety of options, isn't it? We don't recommend fanboying over one thing. You're just going to cut your nose off to spite your face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, Stu. Well,
I think that's.
I think they've had enough of us, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that. Yeah.
Well, you've got both sides of the argument for whether you want a Steam Deck or an Asus. I mean, I've got both. I know that's not something everybody can do, but I don't think you can really go wrong with either. But having both, if you can afford it, is a great way to cover all your bases with PC gaming. So
exactly,
I've had a great experience with both. It's hard for me to pick one over the other. But anyway, Stu, where can you find us?
Right, you can find us on Facebook under Console Shock. You can find us on YouTube under, again, Console Shock. You can find us on all podcast clients. Again, search Console Shock. And we have our website, consoleshock.net. You can find us on Twitter. I do some really funny tweets. Oh, mate, they're proper funny. You didn't reply to my one today, Trev. I replied to your comment.
Yeah, I couldn't be asked. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you.
Yeah. There you go.
Everybody else should reply to him. Everybody else reply.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So please like, share, and subscribe.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for listening to us again, and we will see you in the next one. See you later, everyone.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.